I hiked 75 miles alone on the Alta Via one in the Dolomites of Italy. This was a hut-to-hut hike with plenty of great food, beer, and strudel. Some sections were crowded, some I had all to myself. I enjoyed Italian lakes, cliffs, mountain cabins, peaks, foggy sunrises, packed lunches, pine forests, bunked dorms, rocky passes, and pasta. This trip was mostly fueled by carbs and espressos, and I hope this video inspires you to hike the Alta Via 1 yourself. Day 1, 10 miles. I arrived at Lake Braies with fresh legs and good weather, excited to start my hike. The hotel at the foot of the lake was beautiful and massive. I guessed correctly that this would be the busiest moment of my trek due to the popularity of the lake. People were everywhere, taking photos, relaxing by the lake shore, and of course, waiting their turn to ride the famous wooden boats that dotted the turquoise, sun-glistening water. The weather really was perfect today, with puffy white clouds and plenty of sun hitting the green pine trees. There was no chance of me waiting in line and paying to ride one of those boats, so I continued past the small church and stopped for a moment near some stacked white rocks. Some people online absolutely hate this kind of thing, but I don't really care. Especially when it's a super touristy area like this. Anything goes. Today I'd be hiking an easy 10 miles with one pass with 3,600 feet elevation gain. If you're wondering about the little ghost looking white mark on the upper right of the frame, that's light hitting a ding on my lens. I accidentally tripped over my camera while hiking in Pakistan right before this trip, and I didn't have time to fix it, so sorry about that. I did my best to try and limit its effect, but now that I'm back in New York City, I got it fixed and it shouldn't be an issue anymore. I really enjoyed the contrast between the white rock and the green pine tree bushes in this section. It was up here that I realized just how tan and brown hiking the shoulder season before winter looked in northern Italy. The drone was able to get some nice shots of red in the mountains, the full view of the pass I'd be going over, the lake behind me, and what I believe to be Monte Pelmo in the far distance, which I'd actually be hiking right alongside in a few days. I reached Refugio Biella and enjoyed a delicious vegetable soup and strudel before continuing my descent. A pair of hikers here stopped me to ask if we were on the Alta Via 1, which means they didn't have a map downloaded on their phone, which seems wild. Before starting, I made a custom route for each day on AllTrails, which I downloaded for offline use. You can then simply follow your current location bubble and record your activity to stay on trail and on schedule. You can see my actual activity recordings in the description of this video and sign up for an AllTrails Plus subscription with my 30% discount using my unique link or promo code CraigAdams30. It felt nice hiking up here, but there was still so many people around. After this section, a Romanian couple stopped me to say they watched my videos and asked for a photo, which was nice. Just before sunset, I reached Peradu Bergenhaus. I checked in, changed out of my sun shirt, and enjoyed my first beer of the hike. Pasta for dinner before nightfall. Day 2, 12.5 miles. Solo hiking is very apparent while eating meals inside these huts. I packed up my 35-liter Hyperlite and started off before the sun hit the valley. Another solo hiker saw me filming and subscribed to the channel after stopping to chat for a moment. There was a perfect reflection off this still lake with sunbeams just starting to peek over the mountain range above. I love having the drone to see more of the mountains around me. The early morning fog made for very dramatic mountains in the layers of blue. I enjoy discovering random statues, crosses, and flags on peaks I have no plans of ever summiting. I hiked this entire trail in Oboz Ketabotic LT Low GTX shoes. These trail runners were flawless, felt comfortable and lightweight, allowing me to not even think about them, which is what you want while hiking. I have a couple pairs of these, and this is my official hiking shoe of 2026. This entire trip was made possible by Oboz, so if you want to support me and see more videos like this, support them by clicking the link in the description to check out this exact pair of shoes that I wore on trail. I took a quick break at Melga Pises Fan, which had a very dramatic, cinematic duck, and this carved wooden mountain lion that my 2-year-old son would have loved to see. There was some cool non-AI art of the huts I was coming upon, and maybe it was just the time of the day or lack of people, but I was super glad I wasn't staying here and just passed through. I stopped for a small plate of sausage, bread, and espresso as a chicken walked around my legs. This section wasn't very enjoyable since it was a dirt road, but it had beautiful mountains surrounding it. I also got my first view of the hut that I'd be hiking up to for the night. I passed some horses and started the ascent up to the pass, passing a ton of people along the way. I was starting to enter a very popular day hike area called Forcella del Lago Lagusa. On the other side of the pass, I found a steep winding rock and wood staircase all the way down. This part of the trail reminded me of Zion National Park up in the States, like Angel's Landing, and was definitely a highlight of the Alta Via one. Very cool. I understand why people mark this lake to visit, and I'm glad I had a drone to see it from way above. It was hot, so I took some time to dip my legs in the water. Today was almost 6,000 feet of elevation gain, which is a lot, and left my legs ready for rest. The last bit of dirt ramp brought me into the cloud layer, and I reached Refugio Lago di Braies. I stored my shoes and settled into my bed in the dorms. A beer, this loose seat back, a big old bird, and occasional checks to see if the fog let up enough to show any views. From the deck, not so much, but from above with my drone, there was plenty to see. Day 3, 14.5 miles. The next morning, the fog was lower, and I got my first views of the hut perched on the cliffside. A handful of people joined me as we watched the sunrise. In the distance, a more popular spot was crowded with people and cameras. This really was a special place to stay, and I think I like mountain huts like this way more than fancy city hotels. The breakfast was exceptional. I started off today's 14.5 mile hike. I lost the dry safety of being above the clouds and found rain as I descended. I arrived at Passo Falgorazzo, checked out some artillery, and waited inside the store with espresso until the rain stopped. Sunny skies immediately after a rainstorm makes for very dramatic views. It was really nice looking back at the descent I had just speed ran, and spoilers for what I'd be hiking next. Refugio Novello was out of my way, but a place I wanted to make sure to stop by. The tiny hut sat on top of a huge cliff that sloped up on one side, allowing for hikers to walk up easily. They looked tiny against the clouds burning off in the distance. I was shooting on my DJI Air 3 drone and made sure to use the 70mm telephoto lens to compress the background when I had specific subjects like this hut. I remember an American subscriber stopping me to say hello before I started this climb up. The hut was busy, but I wanted a meal to help remember the place better, so I got some simple pasta, a salad, and yet another espresso. A couple of subscribers next to me said hello while eating up there. It would be fun to include these moments in my video somehow, but I'm just not sure how yet. On my way back down, a bright red hilltop caught my eye. It contrasted so well against the blue behind it, and I noticed a strange white blob and realized it was sheep being herded into a pen. I was coming up on another famous spot, Passo Gio. The winding road up and down each side was popular with motorcyclists, which there were plenty of. Once again, I noticed just how brown the grass looked this month compared to photos I've seen of the same pass in spring or winter. I need to do a little more research about when the best time to hike these trails is. As soon as I left the pass, this section of the trail got incredibly quiet, which was nice. I found this excellent spot for a thumbnail photo. The treeless views and lack of other hikers made this section very enjoyable while I listened to Fred Again, downloaded on Spotify. Having time to think and space to hike away from people puts me into flow like nothing else. The remaining miles down to my destination for the day were on a road going through forest, so it wasn't that interesting to shoot. I reached Refugio City de Fiume, a small mountain cabin surrounded by pines. I picked my bed in the dorms and said goodbye to the remaining quadrini hazelnut wafers that had been giving me life throughout this hike. Every hut had slippers available to wear, but I still regretted not bringing my own. This blue sunset marked the halfway point of my trip here in Italy. Day 4, 12.6 miles. I usually like getting up early and starting my hike before everyone else. I booked this trip with the help of Hut to Hut Hiking Dolomites. You can contact them to help plan your own Alta Via 1 hike or other options that they have. They made all of the hut reservations for me and provided a full guide for the itinerary. Make sure to say Craig Adams sent you if you do. Link in the description. I remember coming up on Refugio Pasos de Wanza, and this group of people on the porch watching me the whole time. I set up my tripod and camera, walked back, walked past, and then went back to get my gear. I do this double back every time for every clip, so I'm sure it might look strange to people who see it. A very brief road walk until back on the trail where I found sheepdogs herding cows with bells. Sheepdogs herding is one of my favorite things to see, and I'm sure my TikTok algorithm reflects that fact. After a very steep climb up, I eventually reached Refugio Alfonso Sorino al Caldini, where I enjoyed espresso and strudel. I hope you're seeing the pattern. I filled my filter water bladder and hiked up to Lago Caldini. Monte Civetta towered overhead. The spot was pretty crowded with people, so I breezed right through, shedding layers as it warmed up. I had all the time in the world, so I did a side quest up to Refugio Tisi. I destroyed some soup and this delicious potato egg dish, I don't know the name of it, and a pair of subscribers also hiking the Alta Via 1 said hello before I wandered up to this big cross at the edge of the cliff looking down to Algae, a town I'd like to visit now that I have the perspective from above. Back down into the pine forest as the temperature rose. A dog welcomed me to Refugio Mario Valazar, where I'd be sleeping. My bed tonight was a top bunk in a 4-person, and it turned out that I was sharing the room with a subscriber. Keeping my sun shirt away from people and out to dry is always an important chore at each hut, but I did wear the same socks and shorts throughout this entire hike. The place completely filled up, and I people watched while drinking my evening beer. Subscribers said hello and bought me around, which was nice. I got one chance to pet the dog on camera before heading in for the night. Day 5. 6 miles. This entire side of the mountain was cloaked in shadow as people woke up for breakfast. I killed as much time as I could before starting today's measly 6-mile hike. I knew going into this trip that this day might break me, having so little to hike and so little to do. The Obo's trail runners were still perfection, and I had 0 blisters or grip issues over the entire 75 miles. I crossed today's pass with AirPods in, probably listening to some Skyrim atmosphere or something like that. I reached Refugio Buto Carrizo at lunchtime, penne pasta with red sauce, a slaw salad, and an early beer. This hut was lower in elevation and surrounded by pines, but had enough of them cleared out for a view out front. It felt right rewatching Attack on Titan downloaded on my iPhone while staying in a hut that looked like what Aaron and Mikasa always wanted to end up in. And yes, I will join everyone else trying to get you to watch this work of art. Day 6, 16.2 miles. A silent, cloudless sunrise brought people out to the front fence. The fact that I had over 16 miles to hike today put me in a great mood. I descended to Paso Duran with purpose and crushed the mile-long road walk. The Alta Via 1 was getting quieter, and I barely saw anyone today while hiking. Since I had a bigger day, I bought a packed lunch at the previous hut, and I was glad I did. A Coke and sandwich slaps when you're this hungry. I was hiking higher towards the last pass of my entire trek, but not before passing through this golden grass to stop for second lunch at Refugio Solomita al Prometa. The slight detour was worth seeing their pirate flag, trying their strudel, and getting to pet this excellent hut cat laying in the weeds nearby. I followed a fast group of 4 hikers up in the hot sun. This ascent was by far the hottest point of the trip for me, and I was stopping to wipe sweat every couple of miles. I passed them when they stopped for photos on this outcrop. This ridgeline was a lovely last challenge to overcome and exposed me well for drone shots against the bright backdrop. One final push up to Cima de Zita Pass. The hike down was super pleasant, with red flowers transitioning into green grass and then trees. I was ahead of schedule, so I stopped at Refugio Pian de Fontana for a tall Paulaner beer, and yes, you guessed it, pasta. My Alta Via 1 was a 7-day hut-to-hut carb march. These leaves backlit looked cool. My day ended with a walk alongside and then down into this huge valley. I easily could have exited the remaining few miles of the trek and caught an afternoon bus, but I had this hut booked, so I'd be sleeping here. I kinda hate having reservations forcing me to stop for the day. I grabbed the top bunk closest to the window because I sleep hot and sent the drone up to scout the area and shoot the sun setting on the tiny hut. Day 7, 4.4 miles. The owner of the hut had a little bus schedule posted on the wall, so my plan was to eat a super quick breakfast and then hike down to catch the first bus to Belluno. The 4.4 miles of the road was uneventful, so I was happy to touch my final Alta Via 1 post and then find the bus stop, which was a little up the road. I rode to the Venice airport and stayed at a hotel nearby until my flight the next morning back home to New York City. I absolutely recommend anyone hiking the Alta Via 1 to fly in and out of Venice. My round trip flights from New York City were just over $500, and also to use the bus system, especially the Cortina Express. And to start my trip, I flew into Venice, took a bus to Cortina, stayed overnight at a hotel, and then took a local bus to the lake the next morning. Overall, I did enjoy my time eating and drinking my way along the Alta Via 1, but the Alta Via 2 that I did a couple years ago was a little more enjoyable because I think it was tougher, more difficult, and that's kind of what I want when I do these trips. My ideal version of this would have been a trail run with 25 to 30 mile days, because I kind of like to suffer a little bit. It's really nice to have the luxury of the huts, but especially if I'm by myself, I want to push myself and be a little bit more outgoing and athletic with my trip. Every piece of hiking and filmmaking gear that I used for this trip and to make this video is linked in the description down below, so you can check that out. I posted some photos of this trip on Instagram stories, and I posted some short videos on TikTok as well. AllTrails activities for every single one of my 7 days is linked there as well with photos. Once again, thank you to Obos for supporting and making this trip possible. And if you've made it this far, let me know. Thank you for watching and take care.